Don't know if there is such a thing anymore. Okay. Any burning questions? I just got to get a piece of paper. Nobody's burning?
I won't say I've got a burning question, but I suppose a simple one on milk. Now that we have 400 choices of soy, almond, white rice, blah, 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 why choose one over the other?
Why choose one over the other? There'll be a few things. I'm just going to write this down. Probably, well, one would be the nutritional makeup of the milk. So having a look and judging it. So, hey, Morris.
Hi, how are you?
We're just talking about choices in plant-based milks.
Oh, okay.
So you've got almond milk, soy milk, just trying to go the common ones. Almond milk, soy milk, rice milk, oat milk. And then you go ones that probably aren't so common, which are hemp seed milk. I mean, you can make milk out of, out of most nuts and seeds. But if we, are you happy, Will, if we just stick to like probably the ones that you're looking at?
Yeah. Just it's more a generic question rather than specifics.
Yeah. Okay. So taste is a big one.
Yep.
So, like for instance, personally, because we drink soy coffee, if we have a coffee, we have it with soy milk. So the best, well, we think and probably is Bond soy, because that is a really has a really thick consistency. So it's quite like, I mean, it's been such a long time since I've had cow's milk, but it's a real thick consistency. So Bond soy Bond soy is also more expensive than the other milks as well. Then you've got your different soy milks, and of course there's however many brands of soy milk. So I would suggest that when you're looking at them, if you're choosing to use think brain, if you're choosing to use milks for fortified, like for vitamin D, vitamin B12, things like that, then you've just got to flip it over and see what it's got in it. Then the same would go for the protein content. So having a look at what the protein content, and again, just looking at the list of ingredients, how much is in each milk. From memory, because I haven't actually looked at these for a while, Vitasoy is one of the milks that tends to have, or did tend to have, a lot of ingredients in it. Lots of numbers, lots of long names, things like that. So I would just really have a look at, flip them over, have a look. We actually shop at Woolworths, so I don't know the equivalent in Coles, and we get the Macro brand at Woolworths. Cool. So I've had a look at that. That is not enriched as much with vitamin D and vitamin B12. It is with calcium, but the others are not, but then we supplement those ourselves. Rice milk is very watery, so if you are not a milk drinker or you don't like it thick, then rice milk is probably the least thickness, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And oat milk, again, that's another thin-ish milk if you're buying it. That's another thin milk, so it's another light milk. Both of them, calorie-wise, are less than your soy milk. Yeah? Almond rice. And then your hemp seed. If you were someone that was wanting to get more protein and wanted to wanted to drink it, you might make your own hemp milk or a seed milk. Yeah? It's also really easy to make at home. I don't do it because I don't allow the time to do that. My life doesn't do it, but it is really simple to do at home. Cost-wise, I've never looked at it, so I don't know if it's cheaper to buy it or make it. Just at a guess, and again, it's just a complete guess, I would think it's probably more expensive to make it than it is to buy it. Again, depending on how thick you want it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I make my own oat milk.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that would be cheaper to make than to buy.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so rice milk, if you're making rice milk, the same, those things, because they're cheap to buy, they would be cheaper to make. And so when I was meaning that, I was meaning more the nut and the soy milks, whereas the nut and the seed milks, the other milks would be cheaper to make at home. But then you got to factor in time, blah, 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 all of that jive as well. Is that enough of an answer?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, cool. Anyone else got any questions? No? Okay. At any point you've got a question, just stick your hand up. You know what I mean? Something that I think, Morris, you asked or somebody asked last week, and I don't feel like I answered it enough, was, and I'm not sure if it was the words that you used, but it was something along the lines of what sort of weight variance do I let, I'm not sure if it was a personal thing, but to let, hang on, I'm just going to let someone in. Hey, Isa.
Hi, Christy. Hi,
Well-
Powers.
Welcome. We've just started, so just listen on in.
Okay. Ian, you coming?
So for me personally, if I'm going away on holiday, again, I don't carry a set of scales with me, so I don't really measure it on holiday as such. How do I put that into words? 2 kilos. So that's how if I had to put a number on it, I'd say 2 kilos. I watch 2 kilos. And then but that's just the measure that I use. Some people will use a measure like they won't go up in the next pant size. You know, someone might let their waist go or whatever, or their hips go or whatever to a certain size, and then once their pants are too tight, then they pull their diet back together. Again, that pant size would be much more of a yo-yo diet than anything, because you've got to put on a fair amount of weight to go up a size. Yeah. So, and as for a variance from day to day, again, women tend to go up more and down than what men do. But ideally, your weight is meant to be the same in the morning, very much the same in the morning to the afternoon. So, hang on, I'm just... Ian, can you hear me, Ian?
I can now.
All right, cool. So, yeah, that's why the recommendation is to weigh yourself morning and afternoon. And then you're meant to be about the same. So there's only a few times that I personally am the same. It's normally, again, a 2 kilo variance. So that I just wanted to touch on that just in case I didn't. So that's when you're reaching a weight that's probably healthy for each person. You should be pretty steady the whole way. It shouldn't be up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah, over the long term. Different if you go out and you have a whole heap of salt or something and you blow up a bit the next day. Or again, like for a woman, she's got a period, so she feels rather larger than normal. So, yeah. Will, I think you also asked a question about adding calories to that base diet. For exercise.
Yep.
Yeah. And I just went, I think I just gave you a flat no.
Yeah, pretty much you said the 2000 is capturing it.
Yeah. So that can be answered by me saying, no, you don't have to add. And then also, yes, you do. So I know, but it's complicated, but hopefully I can simplify it, because if you are, that's where you bring all the measures in. So say you're using scales on the way to scales and maybe strength or something like that. If your weight is going in the direction you don't want it to go, so if you're losing weight or if you're putting on weight, then that means you've got to look broader and go, okay, well, what influence is exercise having on my food and vice versa?
Yep.
Does that make sense? So if you're in the gym and you were starting to drop body weight on the scales, and that's not what you're wanting to do, you're wanting to build lean muscle mass, then that would be one indication that you probably need to up your food.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and also, forgot what I was going to say then. Can't think of what I was saying.
Use more than 1 minute.
Whereas you're going to have, essentially, you're not likely to, your measures, you're not likely to run out of steam because you haven't got enough food.
Cool.
Yeah, because, I mean, most of us are carrying enough fuel in us to get us through an hour workout, like a day and an hour workout. Yeah, but that's where you use the scales and the other measures, and if they start to go in the opposite direction, then you might look at your diet and go, okay, I'm potentially not eating enough food. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Or if you're hungry day after day after day. If you're pulling up at the end of the day and you're hungry, you're not meant to be hungry.
Okay, quite the opposite actually. I find that I'm constantly trying to eat a lot to keep up with the calories I'm supposed to be consuming.
Yeah, and that's where again, here we go. Okay, that's where this way of eating, it can't be figured out only from one measure like the calorie input or the macro input. We can't, again, that's one measure. So that would be one measure that I'm using, just like we might use scales for one measure, tape measure for one measure, skin fold for one measure, strength test for one measure.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So if I measure my diet as in calorie wise, some days I would be well under calories, but I'm not hungry. I've got heaps of energy and I'm getting as much as I'm able to actually measure and know the full spectrum of vitamins and minerals.
Cool.
Yeah. Did that answer that a bit better than no?
Yeah, that's clear now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So just watch. That's where you use the measures. Watch your scales, and if you're hungry, something that can be quite relevant is if you are trying to eat too many above ground vegetables, that can take up space. So the fiber in above ground vegetables is so much that if you're say, for instance, me, when I've grown up, I was a calorie counter. So I would eat the foods that were lowest in calories, which were your above ground veggies, yeah? And so I would fill myself up on those vegetables so I felt full.
Yeah.
So you have to, like we've talked about, really look at your diet and measure it as much as you're able to, because you've only got to do it for a short amount of time. Measure it as much as you're able to and try to, as best as anyone can, is hit all your markers.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not only probably at the least, maybe not the least, but one of the least important things to actually measure would be your protein intake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be the least, almost, I don't know if it's the least, but it would be one of the least important things to look at. Because if you are balancing everything else, then your protein will be covered unless you're under eating. Yeah?
Cool, that's interesting because I have struggled to get the protein count.
Yeah.
But that's good to know.
Yeah. So that would be interesting. How are you measuring it? Can you tell me how you're measuring it?
So I'll do, let's say, 2 weeks of logging everything I eat morning, noon, pretty much everything I eat or drink on MyFitnessPal.
Yep.
So scanning barcodes, entering meals, etc.
Okay, so have you got the premium, or are you just using the
No,
basic?
I don't have the premium, but it's got, I think, everything that I need.
It doesn't.
The premium, when I looked at the premium, it didn't give me anything extra that I needed.
Yeah, MyFitnessPal, you want to, my suggestion, and it's a fantastic app, is Chronometer.
Okay, yeah.
You got a pen, and I'll put it in there, Ometer. Did I get it right? Yeah.
Yep.
So that's free. Actually, no, I lie. You do get a free one, but the next step up, I think it's called the gold level. I think it's about $20 a year. 20,
Yep.
30, something. It could be pushing. It's no more than 50.
Cool, but in any case, you're saying that one is a better app than
Much better app. It gives you about 80 odd vitamins and minerals.
Okay.
Yeah, so that will show you, again, as much as you're able to measure something, it'll show you it measures vitamin B12, it measures vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin A, all the vitamin Bs, on and on and on. K. Yeah, your macronutrients, your calories, all of that jive. But when you jump on it, I will take a photo of a diet tomorrow and I'll email it to all of you and it'll be on there. It probably should be on the email I sent on the last one where I attached my diet. Underneath it, I'm pretty sure had all the markers down underneath it showing that. I'll check tomorrow in case I didn't put it. I would have thought I would have put it, but who knows what I actually did.
Cool.
Yeah. So is that helpful?
Yeah. So you're saying switch the chronometer over MyFitnessPal for more.
Yeah,
analysis.
definitely. And I mean, I would have to. I think even if it is $50 a year, I think it's a really good investment. If you want to measure, if you want to get that sort, as much again as you're able to get that sort of information.
Yep.
Tells you sodium, tells you a lot. Yeah, it even breaks down, if you're interested in those, all of the amino acids, which is protein. It even breaks down all of those. So it then shows you how the protein is coming from the other food sources, plant sources. So, but if I didn't send that to you, I will send it to you via email just so you can have a look and then you can judge it.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions?
Can you hear him?
Yeah. So I just tried moving it to my phone as well at the same time. That was all, so I could move.
Oh, okay. That's right then.
I'm trying to be smarter than I really am. That's all.
Well, you confused the hell out of me. Not hard.
Yeah. Any questions, guys?
Oh, can I just ask, Will, so what you're saying before is when you were putting it into MyFitnessPal, you were coming up with under the protein needed?
Yes, I think I was under the protein, yes. Well, I would kind of push a bit harder to get in the protein, let's say. Before this, I was, let's say, eat a tin of tuna at night before bed, something like that, or have a shake, something like that.
So how much protein were you shooting for? Like, what's that?
How much protein are you shooting for now?
Yeah. I'd have to open my app to have those. I wouldn't know those numbers off the top of my head now, but I can pull that up before the meeting now.
Yeah, I'd just be interested to know, that's all. So,
yeah. Cool.
Yeah, cool. All right. Any questions, guys? Anyone have?
I got some turmeric tonight.
Yeah.
So, and I was just wondering, what's the best way to have it?
Okay, so you can, if you, sorry?
I could have said
so for me, for Powers, I just chop it up or grate it up and put it on his salad.
Okay.
And we did that for a little bit of time, and then my toothbrush got all yellow, so I was like, I think my teeth might go yellow. So now I just chop mine up a little bit smaller just before one meal, and then I swallow it.
Oh, you don't chew it?
No, because it make my teeth yellow.
Yeah, but
I wasn't sure either, because it goes straight down my guts and my teeth aren't yellow.
And your fingers get yellow, so you do need to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sometimes I go, ew, I look like a smoker. Sorry if anybody smokes, but you should stop if you do smoke. Yeah, so it can make your fingers really quite yellow, and it will stain your bench tops. So if you've got like pretty flashy, nice bench tops, you just need to be careful. So
How much? This much?
it is the size, it's 1/4 of an inch.
1/4 of an inch. Okay.
1/4 of an inch. So I just chop it up a little bit small and drink it down with some water. You also, to aid in the turmeric, you want to have it with pepper.
Christy will make up a movie on how much, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do it.
So I will have the turmeric either with lunch or breakfast, because pepper doesn't taste real good on oats. So, I mean, not lunch or dinner. So, and then I just swallow the turmeric and then I put pepper on my dinner.
Every day?
Every day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But don't be too anal. If you miss a day, just...
No, I'm just curious, that's all.
Yeah, every day. So that's what the 1/4 of an inch every day is what's recommended dose. Otherwise, you could put it in a smoothie. So it's just getting it. It's just getting it in. You could just chew it. It's very bitter. It's quite a bitter taste.
But if you just swallow it, you're still getting the same benefit, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and if you're unsure of that, just chop it some, because that helps break it up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that helps break it up. Did that answer that enough?
Yeah, good enough. I'll find out.
Yeah, you'll have yellow teeth at the gym. Yeah. Stop chewing your turmeric, man.
Yeah.
And also with turmeric, you can buy it in bulk, chop it all up, because I do that sometimes, chop it all up and put it in the freezer.
What, take the skin off?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't. But I mean, if it's really hairy, I do trim it back a little bit. But other than that, no, I just give it a good scrub and have it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Who else? Who's having problems, or has everyone like got it mastered?
I would say that, I mean, I'm always someone who jumps out of bed 5 o'clock in the morning, don't have a problem.
Yeah.
I have to say recently a little bit less energetic again now. I can still get up and I'm doing stuff. I'm not doing my gym work till the evening because it's worked out better for me with work and the like. I'm not feeling mega hungry. I'm snacking sort of like as I'm driving, and I'm snacking sort of probably only having 2 real meals a day, but good ones. Yeah, that's the only thing I can say that I've felt differently. I'm just not as jumping out of bed as lively as I used to. That might be my age, though, of course.
Yeah, I'm afraid it is.
Could be that.
How much weight have you lost so far?
It's stayed at 8.5 kg. So, and I still got a little bit around the stomach I would like to lose, or whether that's losing or toning it, I don't know. But certainly, yeah, it's 8.5. It hasn't gone up or down in the last, I don't know, couple of weeks.
Yeah. So, I'd have to say you have to look at it as a whole. So you'd need to like measure what's your work life like.
Look, I'm not overly concerned about it. It's not like I'm actually feeling dead in the morning. I'm just not as lively as I've noticed I've been. And you've got to remember, I'm doing gym work that I haven't done for 20 years. So
yeah,
that's possibly the reason. But it was just worth noting, that was all.
No, and it is, because again, it's still measuring and making sure that you're eating enough food. You know, do you know how many, you don't have to say it out loud if you don't feel comfortable. Do you know what your calorie intake is?
No, look, and I haven't been a calorie counter. And I'm like Powers. I have Easter who does most of the cooking and organises that and really good meals. I'm mostly snacking on nuts, and probably a bit too many nuts and fruit, because it's easy to put in the car and when you're driving. But no, I haven't calorie counted.
Okay. Well, you're going to hit plateaus often. Yeah. So you may, if you, the only thing I suppose, well, a couple of things I would say is, if you're not hungry, you may need to eat 3 meals a day. You might need to up it to 3 meals each day. to up your calories, and you may well need the energy. You may well need that food.
I have to say, when it comes to doing my gym work at night, I don't feel like I haven't got the energy for that. So it's just that get up in the morning. It's just, yeah.
And all day, is your energy pretty constant through the day?
Oh, look, it's pretty good during the day. It's just that that first get up and go, which I'm not used to not having. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I would monitor it for another week, maybe 2 weeks, and then we might have to look at it and like crunch some more numbers and stuff, and actually look at what you're eating.
Actually look at it, yeah. Okay,
yeah?
fair enough. Yep.
But if you're not hungry, the only thing when I say if you're not hungry, then don't worry. When you fast, whether it be intermittent fasting or longer fasting, that can, for some people, shut your hunger down. So it's not an easy one to answer. You just sort of got to look at it and then try a few different things.
Yeah. I'm mixing up as I find it. So yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
And also, you know, dropping the weight you've dropped, and also, you know, your body, because we could go into, if you haven't touched on set weight and all that, set body weight. So your body's got a set body weight, and there's a lot of stuff going on in your body that basically wants to try and get you back to the weight you've been predominantly sitting at for most of your life.
Yeah.
So then it can play different tricks on you like that as well, you know. So by slowing down your metabolism, making you feel more lethargic, all these sorts of things it throws in there, just trying to get you back to your 8.5 kilos heavier than what you were. So, but you're doing a hell of a lot more than what you, as far as step-wise goes, you know, as calorie burning. So, yeah.
And I reckon in a personal note, and also with clients and anyone that is a long-term exerciser, please pitch in too. I reckon it takes a good month, if not longer, to get used to the exercise load before you like in that month, maybe pushing out to 2 months, you do feel tired because it's something that you're not doing. And I reckon for me, when I if I up my exercise, or if I've stopped exercising and start exercising, it takes a good month to actually start to feel energetic from that.
Okay.
How do you other exercises, if you can remember back to, feel? Is that your experience, or?
Yeah, usually with running, if you've had a break and you get back into it, it usually takes about 6 weeks before you start to feel, before your VO2, before your lungs, heart and your joints sort of adapt. So yeah, about 6 weeks for me.
Anyone else got some input on that?
I've never stopped, so I don't know.
Don't stop then.
There's always one, isn't there? There's always one.
But even when you up it, like if you go from up your weights and decide a bit of a push and all the rest of it, it mightn't take as long. But I always find when I start lifting the heavy weights and all that, I'm dragging my bum around a bit for a few weeks until I get used to that workload again. And sometimes I have to eat more food, and sometimes I don't. So it's just keeping an eye on what's actually going in and out. So but Chris and I have been doing it for a long time, so we pretty much I know what I'm eating from day to day, so that's an easy thing to do. I just have an extra meal, and as long as I don't start getting fat, I know I can eat more food. If I add the extra meal and I start to put on extra body fat, well then I know I've got to pull back on it. So I'm just being soft.
Has anyone else?
Yeah, I noticed that a bit when I stop sometimes. Just to get back into it takes a good couple of weeks. And I've gone back before and gone hard again, and it's slowed me down a little bit for another couple of weeks, but I've tried just taking it easy, get back into it, just slowly.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of a 10% rule too, like if you're lifting 100 kilos and you have 4 weeks off the gym, well, it should take you half the amount again to get back to what you were lifting, and you go by 10% increments after that, so you don't hurt yourself. The body wants you, like a month it's usually pushed out for more than a month when you have, because most injuries take about 6 weeks. if they're serious enough to stop training. So then you've got to take your 10% load after that to make sure you don't increase the injury. So you don't want to come back and do 100 kilos straight away on the squat. You want to drop it back to, say, 60 kilos and slowly build yourself back up to doing your PBs at 110% every week. So, but yeah. Does that answer you, Ian?
Yeah.
I'm finding I'm getting a bit sore in the morning or stiff, you know, only lately though.
The turmeric will hopefully help with that, because turmeric's really good for inflammation. And how much do you stretch, Morris?
The only stretching I do is when I get to the gym and I get on that thing, elliptical thing, and that's more for just warming myself up, you know, my back and that. I'm stiff in the back, but I'm okay after that, you know. Yeah,
you got to stretch. Well, I don't want to say you've got to do anything, but then on the flip side, you got to stretch, because you're, even if I make it like a really quite lame way to explain it, is you're shortening your muscles when you're lifting weights.
Yeah.
If you're not adding some sort of length to that, then they will just get shorter and tighter with time. And stretching takes time. It does take time, but it does really benefit the body. I mean, I feel like it, and even though I am quite an avid stretcher, that will be the first thing in my exercise routine to probably fall over. So, anyone else got any input on that?
Well, just go on you, Morris. You've just kicked it in the guts again too. The last 4 weeks since Christmas and all the rest of it, you've really upped your training again now. So why? So you've dropped a few kegs as well. So you'll be starting to feel that a bit.
Yeah.
Foam roller?
Yeah.
Sorry? You have a foam roller or a stick roller or something like that?
You being mean, Jim?
Oh, Morris.
No, I don't have it, no.
Yeah, rolling is really good too. I mean, I think because do you stretch as well, Jim?
Yeah, and roll, and I the physio for dry needling every fortnight.
Yeah, you really do need to add on. And you can also, Morris, you can work particularly the rolling into your workout if you wanted to as well. And that's something, if you want, we can have a look at the gym when we're there at the same time.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, we've also got the, for people in the challenge, we've also got the foam roller on this Saturday at 10:30. There's a foam roller. Nat's taken that. So I don't know, it should have come through on the last email. There's a seminar on this Saturday at the gym, the 7th. Nat's taken a foam rolling class, so it's free for you guys anyway. Did it not come through on the last email?
Yeah. I thought that was last week. But anyway, that's good to know again.
No, coming up this weekend. Yeah.
Cool.
I can't make it.
Well, I'll run through it with you if you like when we're there together at the same time. But yeah, I mean, rolling at first is quite unpleasant, but it doesn't take too long to get used to it.
Yeah. I have to say, I've never heard of it before.
Well, yeah, it's good.
Okay.
It's nice pain.
Yeah, it is.
Bullshit.
And you've left it. Yeah, that's horrible.
It did not sound like that was a real nice pain.
It is if you do it consistently, the same as stretching. It's a nice pain if you're consistent with it. Same as exercise. It ends up being a nice pain if you do it consistently. If you drop it off and then it hurts almost every bloody time.
Yeah.
So, consistent.
I've got a feeling I've joined the wrong group here, I think.
No, you're not. Some of the things that and if you've got questions, stop me. Some of the things that I just wanted to not so much talk about tonight, but just get you thinking about is the effects of eating a plant-based diet on the environment. I don't know how much you guys have looked at, and I'm going to put together an email and flick it out to you for you to have a look at. Has anyone looked into that?
Only as far as watching the actual movie.
Yep. Is that Cowspiracy that you're talking about, or
the Game
Changers?
Game Changers.
So the cowspiracy is an older one. So some of the data would be slightly outdated, but that is a really good film to watch in regards to, it's got more of a comprehensive input on the environment. So that, and it's massive. The more, I think we've talked about it before, the more reasons why you would eat this way, the easier it will be to do. So if it's like, I think we talked about it last week, if it's only about your health, depending on how you're feeling in the moment, health it's either your top priority or you'll deal with it later. But if you've got, say, like environmental factors as well, then that helps to, like, for instance, some of the, I'm trying to pull them out of my head, some of the current estimations is a McDonald's hamburger. So McDonald's, I think it's a Big Mac, but what they reckon environmentally the environmental cost of a Big Mac is on the environment. So the Amazon rainforest is the size of one small kitchen for one burger. Did I make that make sense? So when I eat one Macca's burger, I will burn up my kitchen in the Amazon. And then they put a monetary sense on it. Is that the right word? They put a money amount on it, and they reckon it's $200 to $250 is the actual cost when McDonald's, just as an example, doesn't externalize the cost. So even though you pay, I don't even know what a Big Mac is, $5, something like that. You pay $5 for a burger, it actually costs you $250, and on top of that, I mean, how do you put a price on that? It burns up roughly the amount of a small kitchen.
Over what period of time is that kitchen, is that a day or something? Or
It's a second.
Per burger. You're saying it's
Per
a kitchen
burger.
per burger.
Yep.
Per burger.
That's if you want, I'm going to send you a link. There's a couple of people called Richard Oppenlander. I think that's how you say it. But again, I'll put it in there. It's Oppenlander. He is fantastic. And he's got it's an old talk, but a YouTube talk. I'll just write this down so I don't forget. I'll forward it all to you. It's really, really good. It's a really good a talk to listen to, really good lecture to listen to. Otherwise, if you just put in World Health Organization or WHO.int, I think it is, .int, yep. So WHO.int, that is the World Health Organization, and they are, that's where the most current research is. And there's also the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. That is the top reference for looking at the impact of animal agriculture on the planet. So some of these things, like the effect on the environment, I still can't actually imagine. I can't imagine what that means or what it looks like. It just, even if it was only a quarter of that, it sounds pretty bad to me anyway.
Yeah.
So
when you just talking about that burger there, you said it cost me $250. Is that in my medical bills in the future? What's the $250?
No, it's in American dollars, because most of this stuff is worked out in American dollars at this point, in US dollars. So that's how much if McDonald's didn't externalize their business costs. It would cost you, but because it's subsidised, because there's such heavy subsidising on agriculture in Australia as well, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, the subsidies, okay.
Yeah. So the meat doesn't really cost McDonald's that much. It actually would. The government chips in, and there's some really cool books around that as well that explain it.
Okay, I was wondering where that $250 came in. Cool.
Yeah. So that's some stuff that if you want to look into, and I mean, I think that we should all look into it, and hence sometimes not using those words, but it's really important I mean, at this point in time, they reckon, I think the current, because I haven't looked at this one for a bit on the World Health Organization, they reckon by 2048, all of the currently fished commercial fish will be dead, will be gone in the ocean. That's a lot. And we don't, and that, who knows what that means? Nobody actually knows what that means. So it can be really good to have a look at it, because even if I talk about the fish, so, you know, my thinking might go, okay, I won't have fish out of the ocean. I'll have fish in aqua farms and all of that jive where they're grown by people in intensive fish farming. But to feed the fish in the fish farms, 1 pound of fish takes 5 pounds of wild fish. Yeah, so it still costs. So in my thinking, and I would have thought this in my thinking before, I would have gone, well, I won't eat wild caught fish. I'll eat farmed fish because they're farmed and they're grown, and it's not hurting the environment. But it does. So for 1 pound of farmed fish, they reckon it's about 5 pounds of wild fish, and that doesn't.
What about fish that you catch?
Well, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter what one person does.
Yeah.
Isa. Doesn't matter what one person does.
It does.
It does. Yeah. If every one person chooses to change their diet, yeah. Whereas I understand the thinking, well, if I'm doing that, then that's me not buying into that. But you still are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean you might never fish, but at this point in time, we are overfishing. Does that mean someone will never be able to fish? I don't know that. But at the moment, how we fish we're overfished.
Or even just so much as the water. Like I heard, Chris was listening to a lecture last night, and for 5 pounds of carrots, Chris, you have to fix I think it was 500 litres of water for 5 pounds of carrots, and it was like 5 for a steak. For a pound of carrots, it was like 500 litres of water. For a pound of steak, it was 5,000 litres of water.
I think it was 52 litres of water for carrots.
And it was 5,000 litres of water. I remember the 5,000 litres of water for steak anyway, for a pound of steak. If I just, you know, that blew me away, because I knew it was a lot, but I didn't know it was so much more.
But Cowspiracy is a really easily watchable film that if you wanted to look into that, you could have a look into. Again, it's a little bit old. It could even be about 10 years old, but it's still relevant. The numbers might not be exactly right, but it's still relevant, and you can check all the resources that are there. They reckon that I was telling you about I've got to remember the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So in total, there's like 800 scientists that are in on the study. Yeah? So they've all put their input into this study, and they're all saying that we have to seriously, I think someone's knocking, we have to seriously cut down on animal agriculture. Whereas normally a peer review scientific study might have 2 lead authors on it. There's 800 of these guys going, hey, so apparently in the scientific community, there's no talk about, is climate change real? Does animal agriculture affect the environment? They're already putting their hands up saying, hey, it does. And us back here, we are still uninformed, because in this environment, the governments tend to be controlled by business rather than truth. I mean, it took 40 years for smoking to come out. for us to actually start to go, hang on a minute, there's something wrong with smoking. I heard this really cool story. I hope I don't bore you with it, but I heard this lecture from Dr. Joel Furman, who also, he's really cool. He's a little bit excitable, but he's really, really cool. And he talks about how he puts it, God, I hope I don't butcher it, is he goes, okay, who here knows someone who's been stabbed? So if you know someone who's been stabbed, put your hand up. Who here knows someone who's been shot? Who here knows someone who's been murdered? He goes, okay. Who here knows someone with heart disease? Put your hand up if you know someone with heart disease. Put your hand up if you know someone who's got cancer. Put your hand up if you know anyone who's got diabetes. Man, you better get out of that neighbourhood. You get it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we live in an environment where it is and I'm not knocking the doctors, because I do not think the doctors are bad, but we're living in an environment where it's acceptable to eat the food we eat. In the 30s, we lived in an environment where it was acceptable to smoke cigarettes. They were prescribed to us, doctors smoked them, we lived, I didn't, and none of you guys did, but we lived in an environment where that was normal. At the moment, we live in an environment where the food that we eat, we think it's normal. We think it's normal to have heart disease. We think it's just, you just get old enough, you get heart disease. It's normal to have a big round belly. It's normal to have diabetes. Yeah, they're expected things, but they are not.
Alzheimer's. You're just getting old. Not.
Yes, so that's, did that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought it was a really good analogy to just go, well, hang on a minute, I live in that neighbourhood. And I don't do, I mean, my daughter goes to this hippie school. She goes to some Steiner school, and it's a fabulous school, and they've got this beautiful canteen, and it's all looks beautiful. It's got wood, and all the junk food is dressed up on these beautiful plates and all this stuff. It's still shit. They sell bloody kombucha there. I mean, like, hello, that's not okay. It's not okay. Doesn't mean a kid never has a kombucha. Why would a kid have a frigging kombucha in the first place? But but it doesn't mean a kid never has an ice cream. That's not what I'm saying. But it's become the norm to have foods like this all of the time. And there's so many different reasons why. We're busy, cost, blah, blah, blah. Subsidies, like we were talking about before. Because crap food is cheap because it's subsidised. How many ads do you see on whatever device you watch where they are selling fruits and vegetables? Like, how many do you see?
None.
Yeah, it's really, really fascinating and eye-opening stuff when you start to look at it economically. There's no economics at this point in time with any of us being healthy. We call it a healthcare system. There's nothing in the healthcare system that promotes us to be healthy. It's about disease maintenance. How can I keep you alive for as long? Does it make sense? So when you look at it economically, it really, my eyes were opened and I went, holy crap, I didn't realise how indoctrinated I was. And when I look at it socially, I can see the complexity of how difficult it is to break out of the norm. I mean, if we lived in some Asian country, we would eat cats and dogs. We would see nothing wrong with that. You know, but if I serve you up my pit bull, you're not going to eat her, are you? You're going to think I'm a sicko. But, she's the same. She's the same as the cow. So, and that's almost like the moral reasons, so say animal cruelty, the moral reasons with animals is probably the hardest one, or probably the hardest thing to look at. Not everyone can look at that stuff because it's pretty full on if you've not seen it. So there are also, if you do want to look into the moral side of it, I would recommend a woman called, Melanie Joy. Joy. Melanie Joy. She puts it in a very gentle way. She doesn't bombard you with pictures of animal suffering. So if you do want to look into the effects of how the animals are treated, that can be a really informative way without traumatizing you. That can be a way to look at that. Environmentally, again, the World Health Organization and Richard Oppenlander. Economically, there's there's lots of them. There's a really clever guy called Raj Patel, Patel, Raj is his first name, Raj Patel. He explains it really, really beautifully. So he's got heaps of YouTube talks. You don't have to buy books or anything like that. He explains economics as well and social, because they're pretty close together. Economics and social, they're quite married because they're quite similar. Any questions, guys?
Yeah, how do you change a culture like the Asians or the Russians? Those places have got a hell of a lot more people than, Australia and America and that, and they've been brought up on that sort of, if it moves, kill it type thing.
So do you think that Asia or Russia, where do you think they fit in the world economics? Are they one of the leaders?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Asia?
Yeah, I say China and all those countries there, yeah.
And who do you think they mostly sell their goods to?
They import a lot of their stuff, I think.
Yeah, and who from? At a guess, because I don't know the exact answer either.
I would imagine Australia and the United States and maybe Russia from Europe,
Yeah. So if countries and who do you think controls not the right word. Who do you think in the media wise has one of the biggest inputs in the world, media wise?
Oh, the US, yeah.
Okay. So if the US changed, would that then knock on to others?
Well, if you look at China, they control the media over there, so I'm not sure whether they'll change much. But
can I just jump in there on that one, guys? I read like the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he talks about a simple philosophy: circle of influence and circle of concern. Start with what you can influence. Don't worry about fixing the whole world. Like, start with what you can do, and then your circle of influence can grow with time.
And that's why I was getting to, if some of the countries, the more westernized countries that some of those developing countries look up to, for lack of a better way of doing it, the more singular people, like Isa was referring to too, the more singular people that change, then the governments will have to change.
They've already changed the other way. They never used to have McDonald's and all the rest of it there. Now they are. So Japan and all these countries that predominantly did eat their rice and their veggies and all the rest of it now have got one of the worst cases of diabetes and obesity around. So because of the way we've influenced them, the westernized diet has worked its way into them. So hopefully it can work the other way soon.
Maybe, yeah.
And if there's enough people that change, there only needs to be a critical mass, like with cigarette smoking. Cigarette smoking was the norm in the Western world. It was the norm. And then once a critical amount was reached, then it changed. So you
still get a lot of people in Asia of smoking, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Even in absolutely. And not everyone will change, Morris. Not everyone will change.
No.
But I don't know. I don't know if it will make any difference, but I suppose it's, for me anyway, it's how much power do I have now? And the most power I have is with my wallet, where I spend my money. And if I spend my money supporting the current economic state and the current social state, then that's what I'm voting for. I'm voting for that. You know, I can write letters to this parliament and this parliament, but I'm not quite sure that does as much as going, well, you know what, I'm going to boycott McDonald's. If enough people, and I'm just using them as an example, I'm going to boycott McDonald's. If enough of them did that, it would have to change, or it would close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's, oh God, now you're stretching me now. There's 5, I mean, even the seeds, and I mean, I find this stuff really interesting. There are 5 corporations that own most of the world's seeds. And that might not sound like much, but that is massive, because Monsanto, as an example, Monsanto make the seeds, and they make the seeds in a certain way they make the seeds in a certain way. They sell them to the farmer. God, I don't want to have to go into the whole trade thing, because it's really like mind-boggling to me anyway. So Monsanto sells a seed to a farmer. That seed will not germinate unless that seed is sprayed with a certain herbicide. Yeah. And then the seed needs more and more and more herbicides nowadays to keep it growing throughout. They call it a clean farm. They call it clean farming. And what it actually means is it's sterile. It's a sterile farm. So if a few companies own all of the seeds, they own all the food. And most of the farmers are forced to sign agreements that they have to use only the one seed.
It doesn't regerminate, so they can't get seeds
Not
like they
yet.
used to.
There's some really cool science around what they call suicide seeds. And suicide seeds are seeds that you use once and then they never germinate. Whereas traditionally seeds were passed. You know, you could reuse. They grew. You would pick them up, and they would be kept by farmers and reused or regerminated. Did I make that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's such a complex issue. It's like talking about just one person's eating habits. It's not just about the food. It's about so many other things. So,
but getting back to what Chris was saying about if you get a few of these things in line, like for me when we changed over, for me, once I'd watched the Cowspiracy, once I'd watched the actual devastation that, because I never knew that animal agriculture was the second biggest or third. I think it's the second biggest destroyer of the environment. I didn't know that until I watched these movies, and then I've gone, well, the decision was made for me. I wasn't going to eat animal products anymore. Whereas maybe if I was just doing it for my health, and I'm pretty sure I might have gone down for a bit of chicken or a bit of steak or whatever, because I'll be all right. I'll run that off or I'll burn that off and all the rest of it. But now it's a hard line in the sand. I just don't cross it because I've got kids and I don't want them to grow up without a punnet. And that's that. So if you get as many of these things behind you, that can help you make the decision if you are thinking about, if you're forgetting about how you feel or wanting to go back or eat meat or animal products full on. The importance to maybe pulling back and doing this a percentage of the time. It's for the better good. So, yeah.
And health-wise, and then we can see if there's any questions and wrap it up. Health-wise, if you're interested in looking, there's a really good book called The Blue Zones. I can't remember his name right now, but I'll put it in. So he goes in, there's a few books around the subject. This fella goes in and studies what they call the blue zones, and it's 5 zones where they talk about the longest lived and healthiest people. So in all of those zones, Okinawa, Sardinia, now I'm pulling for it, can't remember the others, they'll come to me. So in all of those 5 zones, they eat a predominantly plant-based diet. So even if you're looking at it health-wise, if your aim is to live long and healthy and productive, healthy lives, then a plant-based diet is the way to go, is what the science is saying and the anecdotal evidence is saying. So again, the more you educate yourself and the more you learn about it, it will give you enough information to make your own mind up. Sorry. Anyone got any questions? Nah?
Nope.
Everyone feel pretty happy to leave it there?
Yep, sounds good to me. What is there a topic for next week?
I haven't pulled one up yet. Have you got something? That's where the questions help lead me on to what we do. So the more questions you ask me, or the more I know where you're struggling or what you're interested in, that helps me to make it relevant for you. Because otherwise I'll just rattle on about the stuff that I think is interesting and you might get bored.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so the more questions you can give me, it helps me to make it relevant to you. Otherwise I'll just tell you about all my stuff.
Yeah.
And also another note, can you please make sure I get copies of your blood works when they come in, whether that you get copies of them and then pass them on to me, because I've got to check over them as well, and make sure they're being looked at.
Just a scanned copy, or what do you want to see?
Scan will be fine, yeah, just as long as I can read it all and I can go through it all, that'd be great. I've just got to, that's one of the conditions that the doctor that wrote them out was that we have to make sure that I've cited them. So if there's anything that does come up, I know it has been cited, because it can just go and sit on the doctor's desk and sit there. So I've got to make sure I cover those bases for him.
Yeah.
I did mine today.
Ah,
Cool.
good.
So you're going to get your copy soon.
Beautiful. I know where
I
to
told
find
him
you.
to I put your address on it and everything. So
Good on you, mate. Sweet.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah. How about anyone else?
Just a quick one.
Yep.
Just more on cooking.
Yep.
Put a message up there because I blew up my rice cooker.
Oh, handy.
Yeah, no, I was cooking brown rice and did 10 minutes on medium and 20 on high.
Yeah, you did. Morris thinks that's pretty funny.
Well, it was a brand new microwave too, and for about 3 days, all I got was burnt rice smell on anything.
So what's your question, or is it just a story?
Well, that got me started thinking about an actual rice cooker, so I could just put the rice in, walk away and leave it. And then I was around at Good Guys looking at them, and then for about $50 more, I can buy a pressure cooker. Then I was reading more about lentils and pulses being able to be cooked in there.
Yep.
Certain types with rice, because otherwise I think red ones go for soups and they go all soggy.
Lentils, you mean?
Lentils and other sort of pulses and beans and legumes, if they're just to chuck in with the rice and cook at the same time in a pressure cooker. So what sort of, I don't know, maybe not go into it so much now, but if there's certain types.
Yeah, because there's so many different sorts of lentils, and different lentils require slightly different cooking methods. Probably the easiest lentil to cook is your red lentil.
Yep.
Yeah, so that would be a lentil that you can just pop in the rice cooker. I haven't done it, but you can do it that way. You can just pop it in the rice cooker. A slow cooker and a pressure cooker are both really good. It just depends on your time, because a slow cooker obviously takes a longer time. So I used to use a slow cooker, and that would mean I'd prepare it in the nighttime, cook it over, prepare it in the evening, cook it over the nighttime, and then it was ready in the morning. Or, cook it get it ready before work and then cook it over the day. So a slow cooker just takes a longer amount of time. A pressure cooker is a lot quicker. It's like half an hour. As for lentils, Jim, it just depends on what lentil you're using as to how much water you need to use.
It's about a 2-to-1 ratio, isn't it?
It's different. Like red lentils are 3-to-1. And I struggle sometimes with lentils to get them right. Also with lentils, you don't cook them with salt because that can make them tough.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
read that.
I'll just write it down now. I'll have a look and see if I can find some information to just pass over to you, but it might well just be, Jim, a bit of hit and miss for you.
Yeah, well, that's what I did the other night. Just some pearl barley and rice. Just combine the two with a curry.
Great. You've got to soak them. Most lentils you need to soak for at least 12 hours. Again, it depends on the lentil. I even soak the red lentils, which you don't need to. You need to wash them. So, and I believe the Indian way is you wash it just gently 3 times. Well, you wash it and then you rinse it out, then you wash it, then you rinse it out, then you wash it, and you do that 3 times, and then you soak it. So red lentils, I will just tip hot water on it and leave it for half an hour, leave it for an hour, then cook it. But you can just put them straight in your rice cooker like you are suggesting. But other, like split peas are one of the hardest ones to cook.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Trying to buy fresher, or not fresher, but rather than tinned stuff, buy dry.
Yeah, well, it's much cheaper.
Yeah, but also just cutting out all the salt and all the additives.
Absolutely. And it's so much tastier. Like chickpeas we eat out of cans. It's got nothing on chickpeas that I boil.
Or bake.
Yeah, that's the taste is like worlds apart when you cook beans. I would just suggest that Issa's nodding her head on that one, aren't you, Issa?
It's very different.
Yeah, very
They're creamier.
Yeah, they're yummy. I mean, chickpeas that I cook myself, I can just sit and eat them. Just boiled. They're delicious. So, Jim, you might want to, depending on how much of a prep person you are, just cook more than what you need. Then you just pull them out of the freezer and use them. As far as I know, anyway, in my current state of ignorance, lentils are best cooked alone.
Okay.
Yeah, than with the meal. They can be cooked with the meal. It still works. But like I said, I didn't even know what a lentil was 5 years ago. So,
Yeah, well, I've never cooked with them either. So.
So I'll find out some info. But yeah, it's slightly different. If you enjoy red lentils, probably go with them because you're not going to fight. It'd be very difficult to muck up some red lentils. So make sure you wash them thoroughly, and the soaking helps to break the enzymes down, or the anti-nutrients down. So it is really important to soak them. Same with nuts and seeds, but I've read. I don't know how I feel with that, but I do soak my seeds. I just soak them overnight for the next day. Leave them in the fridge so they don't go mouldy. So I just soak them in water overnight, drain them, put them in the fridge, and then I pull them out and just put them on my food of the day. So it's minutes worth of work, but you don't have to soak them. But I would definitely encourage you, if you can get into the habit most of the time, to soak your grains. So if I'm cooking rice, even white rice, because if I give white rice as an example, so if you soak white rice for overnight for 4 hours, it reduces the naturally occurring arsenic from the rice for about 50%. Yeah, so of course you soak it, rinse it out till it's like clear running water with all of your grains. Then put some clean water on to soak it, and then once it's been soaking for anywhere from even an hour, will bring the arsenic content down. But so if I will soak it overnight, say, or an hour, if that's what I've got, or anywhere in between, then you tip the water out, put some clean water in and cook it.
Yep.
That makes sense? So yes, it takes a little bit more time. So if you might soak your rice overnight, and again, it helps to break it down, and it reduces the arsenic in the grain. But I wouldn't freak out if you don't soak it. You're not going to die of arsenic poisoning.
Sorry.
Well, we've got bloody asbestos fences on things. So, yeah. Does that sort of answer some of that, Jim?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Anyone else? No. Everyone pretty?
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, thanks.
All right, see you, Jim.
See ya.
Everyone's going. Go to bed, Max.
No, mate.
Thank you.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah.